Devin Choksi of KR Choksi joining me now, but to talk about what he's made of trade over the last couple of sessions. Vijay Bhambani with him on the technicals too. Devin, afternoon. What have you made of the pattern of the last couple of days? Do you think it's just a pause and we can soon head back and try and touch that all-time peak again?
Well, then good afternoon. In the last trading sessions, we basically find that the stock-specific actions are probably, I think, staying in limelight. If earlier days you saw the kind of an action coming in from the cement stocks, I think today probably the action is coming from Tata Motors kind of a company. Yesterday it was Hindustan Lever. So from that point of view, if you look at it, I think this market is typically, I think, moving with, I think, lot of stock-specific actions. And indices are not going to move in any particular direction at this point of time. Though I do agree that at some point of time we are going to be seeing a kind of an upside into these indices, and that could be, I think, very short from now. But at the same time, I think the drivers to these indices probably, I think, they need to participate all together in my viewpoint. And one of the point, I think, or one of the stock probably, I think, in the indices is not participating as much for the indices to go up could be, I think, Reliance. If Reliance starts moving above 1120, then in my viewpoint, I think we should be seeing a higher indices level. Otherwise, I think it would be largely rotational basis stock specific action continuing into this market.
So we think it might be like this for a few more days, stock rotation, essentially the index floating in a tight range, or do you see the new highs coming in and the Nifty going to 6350, 6400 plus over the course of the next few sessions?
Yes, I think very much likely that I think we should possibly see around 6350, 6400 levels kind of Nifty met in following few sessions, and at the same time I think downside very much protected somewhere between 6200, 6250 levels. So it is going to be moving very tight in this particular range, and the actions would still continue within respective stocks, even in some of the mid-cap space where you are going to see larger amount of actions coming in.
Devin, the start today has been Tata Motors. How much more of headroom can you justify after yesterday's surprise?
Well, then probably I think if you look at the valuations, probably I think you find it's plenty of it. And I think if you extrapolate the numbers and go with the directions given by the management, probably you find that Tata Motors could well produce in FY11 an earning per share of between 130 to 135 rupees. And going by that, I think the stock is still available at sub 10 kind of a PE. With the kind of improvement in the volumes, with the kind of cost reduction which is happening, and some of the smaller issues like I think sourcing of engine from Ford, etc. I think if they get resolved for JLR, then in my viewpoint I think probably are very much on course as far as the higher projected numbers are concerned for this company. And if that is going to be the scenario, then in my viewpoint I think we should possibly see a stock commanding a valuation of around between 11 to 12 times on its price earning ratio of on its EPS of around 135. So which should translate to somewhere around 1450, 1470 for this financial year. And going forward I think it could probably further go up. It's a company which has it's a case of complete turnaround, and probably you are going to see a good amount of upside into this company going forward as well.
Devin, what about Hindalco? That stock's come off a bit today. Were you disappointed with the results, or do you think it's a one-off because of one of their smelters and should not overreact on that?
Precisely. I think one is probably, I think market is probably trying to react too much on this particular aspect. I think such kind of events does happen. And most important part is that I think in the entire space of aluminium, copper, as well as I think the Novalis, which is not yet integrated fully into, as far as I think the result announcement is concerned, it is not shown into this particular result. In my viewpoint, I think Novalis holds the key. Probably it is going to head to the trigger. More importantly, because half of or more than that I think is going to come from that side. And that is where you are going to see larger amount of growth happening into the bottom line for this company. So in my viewpoint, I would like to see a consolidated picture than a standalone picture. And a standalone picture, I think with one of the smelter not operating, I think I would not give too much of weightage in a particular quarter. To me, I think this space is really looking attractive. Valuation point of view also, I think if you look at it, they are not too expensive. Yes, I think they have moved up in recent past, but it's not very expensive. So one can definitely hold on to the stocks like Hindalco, or for that matter companies like Sterlite.
Do you track this one, Devin, Omax?
Not in particular about this company, but I think as a sector we are basically seeing most of the realty companies are likely to show good amount of revenue and profit numbers. More from the point of view that I think in these times they have been able to complete their projects and book the revenues and the profits are coming in along with. So if respective pockets you will find I think different companies completing their projects and they are booking this particular revenue. So what we have seen in the earlier years, I think particularly after 2008, that effect is now probably changing and we are going to see improvements gradually in most of the realty companies. So from that point of view, either you look at I think companies like Unitech or for that matter DLF or even the Omex's numbers which have come, or even for that matter recent last week probably DB Realty's number which came. I think some of these companies definitely are likely to show better performance going forward as they complete their projects.
Devin had a look at Bharti's numbers. What did you make of them?
Well, I think in my viewpoint, one good thing which I notice out here is that the Zen operation seems to have stabilized, and probably I think whatever the numbers that we are seeing, probably I think we are going to see better numbers going forward. For a simple analysis if you apply, I think the company has reduced tariffs in Africa and they have started seeing the higher amount of usage. I think so the traction is already seen out there. Maybe I think it may be too early to see that happening in one quarter, but subsequent quarters, suppose if it starts happening, and mind well if Africa starts producing better numbers given the kind of strategy that they are employing currently, probably I think you could see higher amount of EBITDA happening from that space, and that is how I think you should be seeing a consolidated picture much bigger and better from that region. Otherwise I think the 3G rollout could possibly add to higher amount of ARPU, and that could possibly I think on a domestic front could add to the better amount of performance for the company. So clearly in my viewpoint, after reading these numbers, I find that worst is over for this company. How much better it could be going forward in subsequent quarters I think would be the factor of how successful are they in those strategies which they are implementing in African region. I would relatively remain positive on this company and set the price target of somewhere around 380, 390 going forward for next 3 quarters to 4 quarters.
Devin, any worries on the banking front? The way SBI has come off, the way IDFC has reacted post results?
Not really, Udayan. I think to me, I think when I speak to people, I think most of the time I think they are saying that it is run up, they have run up quite a lot, and probably I think nobody is seeing a further headroom visibility. As a result of which I think the people are not acting on buying front currently. Everybody is keen to look at the banks, particularly I think the likes of IDBI for that matter, which has turned around, or even for that matter ICICI, which they would willing to include into the portfolio more aggressively going forward. I think, but what they are waiting for is the kind of a fall into the market or corrective fall into the market before they buy. Almost everybody understands one thing very clearly, that yes, the growth fundamentals are continuing with the banking stocks, and the larger amount of credit growth would probably signal higher amount of business going forward. So from that point of view, whether you call it I think infrastructure finance company like IDFC or for that matter some of the larger banks like ICICI or SBI, they are all likely to have favorable outlook from the point of view of higher performance in the stock markets. I think it's a question of time. People are waiting for buying at lower levels.
And do you see it forming a base around this 320, 325 levels or a bit lower?
Maybe ideally I would like to see it coming down to around 300 levels, and probably I think look at this particular company for over next 2 to 3 years. The larger amount of growth programs are unfolding. But whether I think it would come down all the way to 300 levels, I'm not too sure, because couple of important points which probably I think would ask this company to stay little bit on a higher side. One among them would be I think the possibility of inclusion into the indices, and second would be I think inclusion into the FNO. These two aspects would probably keep this stock somewhere around 310-20 levels, if not I think lower. So I think one would probably like to see it I think around 300 level, but I think probably buy at around 310, 320 kind of a thing, given the kind of a possibility on this side.